Now, hey, Jamal, I want to pronounce your last name right because I don't want to get into a fight, you know what I mean, where I know I'll lose, you know what I mean? So please tell me your last name.
CHARLO.
Jamal CHARLO, you know what I mean? So please tell me your last name.
CHARLO.
Jamal CHARLO, you know what I mean? So please tell me your last name.
CHARLO.
Jamal CHARLO is on the...
That's right. You heard Big Brother. It's CHARLO. All right, so Jermell CHARLO faces Brian Castaño this Saturday. Castaño's like 17-0, one draw with 12 knockouts. And his draw is with Erislandy Lara, or Erislandy Lara, as most people say. In his fight with Lara, it was very competitive, and Castaño landed his power shots in that one. He gave as well as he took with Erislandy. So I think the best chance for Castaño in this one is to come forward, turn it into a bit of a fight, okay, a brawl, attack the body, and try to keep CHARLO on the back foot as much as possible. I say this because while Austin Trout, Tony Harrison, John Jackson gave CHARLO trouble, they all outboxed him for a majority of the rounds. And Castaño is, the difference is he's only 5'6" or 5'7", like in that range. And also his power is not one punch power. So in his fights with Patrick Teixeira, who's about 6 foot, Wale Omatoso, who's about 5'11", 6 foot, like in that range, he was on that Sam Solomon type of thing. He just came forward and outworked opponents, especially Teixeira, where he was a madman. That's the guy who needs to show up Saturday night. Okay? If you look at the fighters CHARLO fought, Jackson, Harrison, and Trout, they all got off. They kind of got in and out. And they all built leads, in my opinion. The reason, one reason is CHARLO at some point fell in love with his power. And in those fights, he swung wildly, very, very wild with his punches. And sometimes with eventual success, like in the rematch with Harrison, and then late, while he was down on all 3 official judges' cards with Jackson, so he was able to score TKOs. I thought Trout made him look foolish in their fight. As a matter of fact, I thought Austin Trout made both CHARLOs look amateurish. Jamal won a close unanimous decision against Trout. Many thought Trout won. They thought Trout won that. Jermell won a majority decision over Trout. And this was with scoring 2 knockdowns in the fight against Trout. So, and then John Jackson gave him angles, and he let his hands go, and his footwork was awesome until he faded. So he backed Jermell up with movement and angles more than just coming forward, which Castaño is going to do. Can he give angles to go along with just coming forward? John Jackson fought the perfect fight for about 7 rounds. And then he faded. So Castaño has that type of ability, even with the physical disadvantages. I think he might be at least about 4 or 5 inches shorter than CHARLO, and I'm sure he has at least a 5-inch disadvantage in reach. So he has to use his activity to win, and with that comes the risk of getting in. But he can outwork. People have shown it, whether you want to call it outboxing or outworking or a little of both or both. He's just got to use his activity to win this fight, especially in Texas. Now remember, Castaño was the WBO champion at one point, and he was also the WBA title holder for a time. I don't think at any point he had both titles, but had he beaten Lara, he probably, more than likely, would have been a multiple belt holder, at least at the time. Now, he got stripped by the WBA for not going to France to fight a rematch in the hometown of the guy he beat to earn interim status. So, and part of the reason is it took the guy's promoters 10 months to pay Castaño. They had to pay him in installments for that fight that he won. So, what do you think would happen if he fought the guy again in his hometown this time? So we'll see how it plays out Saturday. Castaño's been to the mountaintop, so to speak, because he's had 2 belts. I'll put it that way. We'll see how it plays out. If he can get off to a good start and win some early rounds, it could be interesting. If it's like 4-2 or 3-3 after the 6th, this one is going to be a scrap, I'm telling you. CHARLO is the majority favorite, but Castaño, he's coming with his hard hat. I'm telling you. Let's move on. As I stated in other videos, I had the feeling something weird was going to happen in the Fury versus Wilder fight. I even mentioned that Fury would do something to delay the fight. But this guy is holding the boxing world hostage at this point. So I don't know what's going to happen, because he's had a belt for, wait a minute, let me say this right. He hasn't defended. He's had a belt for a while. 2 years? I can't. Don't quote me. So now people are going to start asking the questions about stripping, and you know how sanctioning bodies are. If they find an angle, they're going to they're going to try to take it. But so October 9th is the new targeted date. So we'll see. We'll see. Some strange things that popped in my mind about the Fury COVID situation, and maybe some of you can make it make sense for me, okay? First of all, Fury says he's leaving the United States and going home for a while. And does that sound like a guy that has COVID? And they won't allow that, will they? Like, he can't travel with that status, can he? Did any of you see the Conor McGregor fight? Because in that fight, in the crowd, you saw Joseph Parker. Good fighter, right? Well, here's the thing about Joseph Parker. He was one of Tyson Fury's sparring partners who was listed as testing positive for COVID. So he's in the middle of the crowd, no mask. He's just, I'm like, well, dude, I thought they said you just had COVID. So how is he at the McGregor fight if he tested positive? Right? High strangeness going on here. Something like what's happening? Okay. Fury talking about traveling home, but you got COVID. Joseph Parker, they say you have COVID, and you're in the middle of the crowd in the fight in Vegas. I think it's Vegas, right? Where McGregor and where that fight took place. Somebody make sense of it. Next, Jared, the real Big Baby Anderson. He was a sparring partner of Fury also. Now remember, we had the bubble, and if somebody was around someone who tested positive, they wouldn't let them fight. Or if in Freddie Roach's case, he was away from a boxer for a while, and he was going to meet the boxer at the venue, and then Freddie tested positive and he couldn't. So they let the guy fight because he wasn't around Freddie, I guess, for a while. And so someone else was his trainer that night. Was it Virgil Ortiz Jr.? I can't remember. So I'm not, don't quote me. So Jared Anderson, he was a sparring partner of Tyson Fury also. He's still listed to fight on the original date because they have, it was going to be like a night of heavyweights. So F.A. Ajagba was going to fight Frank Sanchez, Jared Anderson, and then the big fight other than Fury and Wilder was Adam Kalnacki fighting his rematch, right? Because he got upset, and that there's no way that fight could be boring, right? Adam Kalnacki, the rematch between him and Robert Helenius. So that card is still a go unless they determine they're going to scrap the entire card. So going back to Jared Anderson, boxing has continuously, remember the bubble, not allowed boxers who came in contact with someone positive to fight, even if they tested negative numerous times. So, do they go against that now and allow Anderson to fight? That would be more evidence that something's just off. So if you take the factors, Fury saying he's going home, if they allow him to go home and he's positive, something's off. Joseph Parker, who was listed as positive as a sparring partner for Fury, he's center stage. He's in the middle of the crowd at the Conor McGregor fight. Something seems off. Now Jared Anderson, who was a chief sparring partner, if he's still allowed to fight next weekend, Saturday, July 24th, something seems off. So would that and any of the aforementioned factors lead you to believe Fury is faking? And I've heard everything in the book to the fight was announced too fast, and Fury may have some cocaine in his system that he needs to get out of his system, or I've heard that. I've heard Fury actually looked in good shape, and when he fights Wilder, the game plan is to be up in that 260 to 280 range, and he wasn't there because he looked slim when you saw him on TV at various fights over the past couple of months. Whereas his game plan to fight Joshua is to be the slim, lean Tyson Fury. So once the injunction, once Wilder won the case, Slim Fury, who's going to go fight Joshua, allegedly, needs to become Fat Fury. You guys tell me. Let's move on. Let's give a little random thoughts and close this thing out. So apparently Floyd Mayweather Jr. says Gervonta Davis will only fight premier guys. I don't know if this is true. I don't listen to Floyd Mayweather these days and haven't for some years now. So if that's true, where does Davis go? I mean, does he fight the much undersized and aging Gary Russell Jr.? How about the much more undersized Chris Colbert? Robert Easter Jr. maybe? Anybody? I mean, who's there as premier guys? Richard Comey, I'm not sure. Is Comey, I think he's one of those guys that fights on multiple networks. I think. The best premier matchup would be Regis Prograis. But he just came out criticizing Alan Heyman about broken promises. There's a story on a website called SB, like Stephen Bryan, like SB Nation, where Regis, I'll attach the article below if I remember to do so. But in that article, he talks about being promised the Mario Barrios fight, only to see Davis get it. Then he said he was promised Adrian Broner, and that didn't happen. And he'd like a shot at Davis if he can get it, but I'm not sure that'll happen. And that's why I said in many videos, if Terrence Crawford comes to premiere, the Spence Jr. fight, it won't happen. It's not going to happen anyway. The Thurman Jr. fight won't happen. Maybe he gets a Porter. Maybe he gets Garcia. Or maybe he gets Garcia, if you follow my drift. But he's in a tough situation. And so what Prograis claims about broken promises could be a blueprint to what happens to Bud if he were ever to sign with Premier. Now, rumor has it Terrence re-signed with Top Rank, just as Teofimo Lopez re-signed with them. So we'll see. Let's move on. Pacquiao versus Spence Jr. That thing on Fox they had, it was kind of boring. But at least it was good to see them out there talking a little bit, standing side by side, the whole nine. But it's just two guys very respectful, but also keen on the fact that hands are gonna fly on fight night. So let's not kid ourselves. So we'll see. We'll see. Who's ready for the upset? Who's ready for that Manny Pacquiao upset? All right. Oh, going back to Crawford. As far as Crawford's opponents, could we refer to him as the Gervonta Davis of Top Rank? I mean, because if he's going to be forced to just fight Top Rank guys, or however it works, then I guess his Regis Prograis would theoretically be Josh Taylor, right? In-house, good matchup, great matchup actually. So we'll see. Can the Milwaukee Bucks make it a series tonight? some would argue they already have. It's only 2-1, but if Phoenix wins, is it a series? I mean, it's 3-1 now, so we'll see. If I like Phoenix in the series, but tonight should be a fight. I don't know how close it'll be. I don't know if it's a blowout. I expect the light-skinned kid to play better for Phoenix. He didn't have his best game the other day. I expect the big man for the Suns, Ayton, to play better, but you got to look at how Giannis plays at home and figure he's going to come with a similar effort. And then you're going to look at how Devin Booker's the light-skinned kid I'm trying to think of. You got to look at how Middleton can shoot you in it and shoot you out of it. And he was on his way to shooting Phoenix back into the game, and they sat him down, and then the other kid got hot with the dreads. Excuse me for the names. Goodness gracious. My man, he's been with a few teams. What is my man? What is well, whatever his name is. He got hot, and they just said, Middleton, just just take a seat and stay there, because we're rolling right now. So we'll see. To me, when it's a series-altering game where Milwaukee can go down 3-1 or tie it up, and now we're going back tie it up. You look at your role players. You look at your role players and you say, okay, your Frank Kaminsky's, your help me out. I'm struggling with these names. The kid with the dreads, Drew Holiday. I get him mixed up with this other guy whose name is slipping my mind, but but you look at your Brook Lopez's who played very well when Antetokounmpo couldn't play. So you got to look at guys like that. Your Jeff Tiggs, your Bobby Portis's, and to see if they can give you that spark. So Drew gave him the spark the other day, because Middleton, it was, you can shoot it, he can shoot you in it, shoot you out of it. And on Phoenix's side, like I said, the DeAndre Aytons, the Cameron Johnsons, Bridges. I would have put Sarge, but he's out. Sarge. So we'll see. And so let's look at the other side of the heavyweight division. Anthony Joshua, Alexander Usyk. He got a cool picture of him losing the rock, paper, scissors, and he cut his hair bald. He looked scary. I like, man, he looked mean now. This is a $200 million risk, because when Fury and Joshua signed, they were signing for 2 fights. They were going to get at least $75 million in the first fight. You figure the same or more in the next fight, and throw a little bit more. It's at least a $200 million risk taking on a guy who is no slouch. just came back from the Midwest, a trip to see my niece. She's going into the 9th grade. She can already touch the rim. And in women's basketball, if you can just touch the rim, they're not expecting you to dunk. But if you can touch the rim, the big schools are looking at you now. She's going into the 9th. She's only 6 foot, maybe 6'1". Let's call her 6'1". And she's touching the rim prior to going into the 9th grade. So she went to this big tournament. Everybody was there. Kara Lawson, Gino Auriemma, Andrew Wiggins was there. A lot of the big schools. And she got an offer from University of Pittsburgh. Pitt gave her an offer. This is going into the 9th. She's right-handed. She's already developed her left hand, which with girls basketball, maybe in the 11th or 12th grade, more than likely as a freshman or sophomore, you begin to develop your left hand. So she's for her to get an offer like that just has her parents like, I can't believe this. A scholarship offer. So at worst, she'll have a full ride at Pittsburgh, and then now with this NIL, name, image, and likeness thing, who knows? So Zanaya, keep doing your thing. I haven't been going to many fights. Of course, COVID is one reason. And so I may go to Gerald Washington. There's a fight on Fox. The last day of the month, July 31st. Gerald Washington. Is the main event in a fight against Michael Coffey. Michael Coffey is a chief sparring partner for Deontay Wilder, and I think he's also been in with was he in there with Fury also? But I know he's been in there with Deontay Wilder. Okay, and so he's 12-0, 9 knockouts, and he's been on Fox for his past 3 fights. So after proudly serving in the USMC, right? United States Marine Corps. So that's a decent matchup. That'll let us know where he is. Gerald has a tendency of giving guys a good fight, and then he kind of fades late. So we'll see. They're talking about Casemiro versus Rigondeaux. That right there, that's a good one. Keith Ghost Thurman Jr. Ghost Thurman. He said that he was going to have something. He's going to announce something. Some things got pushed back, so I don't believe a word Keith Thurman Jr. says. So we'll see. He be capping. Is that what they say? Speaking of capping, Gary Russell Jr. also runs his mouth. We need you in the ring, man. It'll be good to see Julian Williams back. He has had some misfortune. Past 3 times fights got canceled, so we'll see. If they keep that heavyweight date, boy, that Frank Sanchez versus Efe Ajagba, man. There's also been talk of Mikey Garcia and Regis Prograis, so is it another promise going bad or what? Anyway, just make sure you check out CHARLO versus Castaño this weekend, and then maybe all the heavyweight fights with Helenius and those guys, Sanchez, Ajagba. Maybe those will happen. They'll stay on, and we'll have a card. I hope they switch it from pay-per-view, or they lower it to like 1999 or something, because it's not the same without Fury and Wilder. And then the week after that would be the Gerald Washington, Michael Coffey. So catch you on the next one.